Back up.
Alien life form must destroy.
Walter, I think he's talking about you.
I've always been the guy who, even since I was little, I loved movies, that had a lot of effects, and I always was interested in movie making. So it's a way to learn about it as you're doing it, and you get to work with the best people in the industry. You're sort of an apprentice in the sense when you're a director, because although you're guiding the people who are doing these things, you're learning from them as well.
I'm one of the lucky people in this business. I've had a chance to work with some of the most creative directors in the world. And I have now worked with one of the most creative directors I've ever worked with, Jon Favreau, who has this wonderful take on films and effects, which completely parallels what I'm always looking for, and wants to actually work against the concept of the technology.
All the interiors, the monsters and the robots are all sort of built by Stan Winston, and they go back decades, and they have a fine tradition in real practical effects that are there on the set.
He wants things to be there and be live and be able to act and interact with actors.
We read the script. I thought the script was really fantastic, and a lot of our decisions as at Stan Winston's studio are based on how much we like a script, because you have to invest a lot of your time and energy into that. So I thought the script was very, very funny, and so did Stan. And the Zorgons were described as these green, scaly space pirates, which is a great concept. And once we got on board with Jon Favreau and Michael Riva and all the producers, Peter Billingsley and Bill Teitler, the influence of the film has a very 60s kind of retro feel to it. So the design has a bit of a retro feel to it. And so that's how we interpreted those characters.
You are visited by Zorgons.
What's a Zorgon?
First and foremost, it was a mandate by the director, Jon Favreau, in our early meetings that he likes the look of physical effects, knowing that there is an absolute place for digital effects and as well. But when you can create as much as you can in front of camera for the other actors to react to, it has more of an immediate sense of the creature actually being there. Over the years, we've kind of developed a certain system where there are certain showrunners that will take a script, interpret the script, work with designs, and then work with the director, production designer, all departments, and bringing whatever's written on the page to life. So it goes through a process of design concept, and then physical art construction, and then all the molding processes, mechanical processes, rehearsal processes, and then we finally bring it to set and shoot the scenes as if they're actors in the film. A very interesting concept was Jon Favreau's, in which you can utilize a physical suit and have the actor's head outside the suit and then digitally remove the head. So the mandate from the design was we have a man's body, but where a suit performer's head would naturally be, or where an audience can kind of detect where the man is inside the suit, we would remove that right down to the shoulders, which creates a silhouette that makes you wonder where the head is. So then the neck comes out of the chest, which elongates the whole creature. And it's sort of a headless horseman magic trick. But because we have the technology to digitally remove things and replace it with background, that was just a brilliant idea. So that was very much the centerpiece of the whole design. They're actually quite complicated suits, and it's not just for the suit performers wearing them, but for the people outside operating the head, the neck, the eyes, the nostrils, the bladders that move, the tail that moves. So there's a lot of coordination. So really, when you see one Zorgon, there's probably actually 4 minds working together. The guy wearing the suit and then 3 additional people that you don't see, making it look the correct way, responding, giving it that kind of life.
We did a lot of tests also with the skins and how they react to the light, because again those were characters that had to be sort of progressively being revealed. In the beginning you have a hint of what they are, but you don't really see them. So lighting them was all about having just edges that the light will kick in and then it will go away, and depending on how their moves were. And then finding the right speed to shoot them with how they're moving. So we would do a little higher speed when they would move, and this is this guy carrying and doing the moves. So there were a lot of elements and a lot of people working around this creature to make it come to life.
I think the reasons that we made the choice to have actors in Zorgon suits on set and actors in partial robot suits is that we were working with kids. And as brilliant and as smart and as talented as these 2 kids are, I think it would be a lot to ask them to look at a ball on a stick and say, oh my God, this is a lizard man that's chasing you.
The pluses to having real suits there when you're working with young actors is that the actors have got something to absolutely interact with. It's a real threatening presence. It's there. It's a great big green lizard man with a sword. There's all sorts of interaction with the set. The physicality of it you really feel and sense.
They're really real looking, so it's really scary, because you really have good motivation when you see a Zorgon running at you with a sword in its hand, because it's big, it's slimy, and it's coming towards you fast. It's really cool. Your robot is defective.
What does that mean?
It means my robot's broken.
We don't even have a robot.
I think one of the most popular elements in Zathura is the robot. And we thought, even in pre-production, when we had a drawing of the robot, we thought, oh, the audience is going to love this, the kids are going to love it. He starts off as a 10-inch toy and grows pretty quickly into an 8-foot, giant, heavy, iron, we don't know how he works, but he does, robot, that he has one very simple task. He's kind of like a giant 3-year-old who's told to chase you and catch you. And he has a little trouble with his own weight and his own proportions, because his arms are a little too long, his chest is enormous, his waist is tiny, his legs are short.
The robot was a huge challenge because it was a combination of Mike Riva design, Stan Winston creation of a guy basically in the robot suit. So you had the robot's torso, the robot's head, and the performer was wearing the robot's feet. So we would add the arms and we would add the legs. So what we needed to get out of the performer in the robot, though, was a believable performance, which is a little difficult to judge. Honestly, when you see a guy in a robot suit running around in dailies, you think, oh my God, this isn't going to work. So we did a test in pre-production, and we had actually Stan Winston's digital company add legs and arms to it. And you know what? It was amazing, but it worked, and it was funny, and John loved it.
We like the fact that a performer wearing a part of this suit is out of balance, and he's struggling to keep his balance, and that's a hard thing for an animator to kind of capture. So we had the performer just run through the set, kind of slamming into things, trying to stop, really fighting against what he was wearing, even though they did a great job. We shot that with cameras that would repeat, motion control cameras, and then we also shot the rooms with nobody in them, so that we could paint away the performer wherever you see him, and then Sony Pictures ImageWorks filled in the rest of the robot in CGI.
You got so many subtle things. There's one shot where the robot runs into the desk, Dad's desk. He's chasing Walter, and he slips on debris that's on the floor. Well, the reason we got that is because that really happened. The guy was in the suit. He was supposed to run into the desk, but the stuff falls on the floor, and he really was slipping on it in the robot feet. So there's subtleties to that performance that would anyone have thought of it? And then B, if they did think of it, how well could you have executed the subtleties of how weight and mass, act? So it was challenging, but it worked out really well.
We had a lot of versions of the robot. We had a full-body robot that could be puppeteered. We had a BAM-bot, which was made of iron and all heavily welded, and we would smash that through doors and we'd smash it through walls. And we had a less refined version of the suit that was lightweight and good for running around and just chasing the kids. And we had a more
detailed version that had a lot more gadgetry inside, so that the eyes would function and the antennas would function, and there's a little window into his mechanics. It's not electronics, by the way. It's all mechanics and oil and steam and fire and that sort of thing. And BabyBot was the 10-inch tall robot, and he has sort of more childlike features than the 8-foot. And he was puppeteered from beneath the floor. The Stan Winston guys would just kind of cram into any crevice that they could get into, and we'd drill some holes, or they would drill the holes and poke the rods through, and just kind of by feeling they would puppeteer the little 10-inch BabyBot.
When we build creatures, we generally like to perform them as well, because we know them, we know how they work, or at least we have the mental idea of how we think they should work. And the Zorgons and the robot are pretty physical in terms of the way we're manipulating things. So we've got internal mechanisms, which are to say cable or radio-controlled systems within the confines of the faces or bodies, but we also use rod puppeting, which is a process in which you have an external rod connected to a limb or a head, and you can actually physically move it through space, and the rod is visible. And much like the Zorgon's heads being replaced, the rod will then eventually be taken away as well. And that allows for a great amount of responsive ad-lib kind of movement. That's what's really fantastic about it. Also, it's kind of a nice organic flow, because it's a direct correlation from your mind to your hand to the item that you're moving.
Cars. Shipmate enters cryonic sleep chamber for 5 turns. What the heck does that mean?
We said, let's do something where Lisa's frozen through the movie. That was something that came up later. That wasn't in the original script. That was something that came up through development. And so what we came up with was that, she gets frozen, and by getting frozen, she's still there, but she's not really aware of what's going on. She becomes a prop. And then later in the movie, she comes back to life and unfreezes and is part of the movie. So I figured for Lisa, we'd get a mannequin, and we'd spray her with that, and there would be this white, frozen prop that we would throw around and have fun with. Well, you can't sell that to Stan Winston Studios. Next thing you know, they were taking pictures of her and scanning her.
The wonderful thing about Frozen Lisa is that's a work of art using every method of replicating a human being that we've been using for years.
We start out with a body scan, and they scan roughly, because you're wearing clothes, they don't need to get it exact, but they scan for your body type, and then you go in and you get molded. First they did my head, and they did my legs, they did my arms, and then after all the molding I had to come back a couple weeks later, and they had to paint me. I stood next to my me, and they painted me.
The finesse of it is the artists, the sculptors, who end up taking these forms that have been cast from the actor and laser scans of the actor, and subtly doing a final sculpt to make sure that the eyes are right, because you don't cast somebody with their eyes open. Having the reference of photos and having reference of the laser scanning, she is literally just a really beautiful mannequin that, because the artists have a good eye and can see when it looks right and when it looks real, knew how to paint her, knew how to give the depth, and you could see that it was real, and then using flakes and wax and all the typical Frozen things that we would do to an actor and that we've been doing for years, but in this case, covered onto a replica of the actress that is perfect.
I have to say, it's a trip seeing yourself in person, because you can see yourself on screen, which is also kind of weird, but to see yourself actually in person, standing next to you, it's just a sensation that no one really has ever experienced before. And also the fact that she's blue and icy and frozen, and every nuance, every freckle, every line on my face, it's there. It's amazing. They did a great job.
Well, I got there, and you couldn't tell. You're looking to see if it's breathing, and it looked just like her, and they had gone through a process of making it look frozen without making it look dead. I mean, that was the other thing, is you didn't want it to be like a horror movie. So you wanted it to be haunting and have life in its eyes, but also be obvious that it's frozen and not awake.
Check out playback on that. Cut. Check out playback.
When you've made creatures for 20 years or so, or in Stan's case, 30 years, you're constantly challenged to wow an audience, because there have been not just our studio, but a lot of other studios that are making creatures and interesting things as well. So you're always striving to come up with a design that's both functional and pleasing just overall, or interesting enough to go, wow, that's actually really, really neat or iconic. And that's always going to be a challenge.
Stan and his guys, with their ingenuity and the combination of, it's scary, it's whimsical, there's tremendous personality. And because they're real things that the kids are really interacting with on a real set, you always feel that they feel that they're real because they are real.
Any great actor will tell you that 50% of acting is reacting. The best actors will tell you that their best performances come from acting with another good actor. Imagine doing your best performance with no actor there. So these are tools. We're creating the performance for these characters, but they're also tools for our actors. And it brings a reality to this movie. And so now I'm going, now here's what we've got now, and this is why I'm excited. Got a terrific script. Got an amazingly imaginative director. We've got great actors, and we have been able to create characters in a way that nobody's seen before. It's kind of a slam dunk, isn't it?